Yahya Sinwar, the leader of Hamas, has been killed in the Gaza Strip. Who was Yahya Sinwar? Why was he so important? What was his role in the October 7th attack? What does this mean for the future of the Israel-Hamas war? I'm Alon Burstein. Let's dive deep into this latest news from the Israel-Hamas war. Yahya Sinwar, the leader of Hamas in the Gaza Strip since 2017 and the all-encompassing leader of Hamas in the last several months, has been killed on October 16th in the Gaza Strip. According to reports, he was killed in a gun battle that occurred in Rafah, the most southern town in the Gaza Strip, in the Tel Sultan neighborhood. The IDF did not actually know that he was present in the building. It was a quote-unquote routine sweep that IDF troops were carrying out in the area when they came across armed Hamas operatives. Gun battle occurred, and Sinwar was killed. Who was Sinwar? Why is this so important? How did he climb the ranks to become the undisputed leader of the Hamas movement? So some biographical information. Yahya Sinwar was born in Han Yunis, one of the most southern towns in the Gaza Strip, in 1962. He was part of the original founding circle of Hamas. He was not one of the original founders, but he was one of the operatives in the field that when Hamas started to develop itself in the latter half of the 1980s. Among others, he was very prominent in establishing the internal security mechanism of the Hamas movement right at the beginning when Hamas started establishing itself in 1987. And he was most famous for establishing what was called the Majid, which was Hamas's internal security mechanism. This was a mechanism of Hamas that was actually not tasked with attacking Israelis. Instead, it was tasked with ensuring the quote-unquote moral standards of Palestinians. That means ensuring that Palestinians are not consuming alcohol, attacking pornography shops, and most importantly, finding, interrogating, and targeting possible Palestinian collaborators, people who were cooperating with the Israeli occupation, primarily in the Gaza Strip, but also in the West Bank at that time. Reportedly, between 1987 and 1989, he killed over 10 Palestinians. Some of these he personally killed, all of whom were suspected of collaboration with Israel. He was also in charge of several units that raided different Palestinian alcohol stores and similar things throughout the Gaza Strip. All this earned him the nickname the Butcher of Han Yunis as a result of his very violent interrogation method of different Palestinians. As a result of this activity, he was arrested in 1989 in Han Yunis by the IDF and sentenced in Israel to 5 life sentences. While he was in prison in Israel, he reportedly learned Hebrew very, very fluently and became what some of his interrogators and fellow inmates called obsessed with Israeli culture and understanding Israeli population. Among others, he reportedly never missed the Israeli evening news and was constantly taking notes, trying to understand Israeli politics and Israeli society. In addition to that, it was also reported that he had translated entire autobiographies that were written by former heads of Israeli Shabak and different Israeli intelligence. He translated these from Hebrew to Arabic, insisting that the Palestinian population must familiarize itself with the way Israel operates, specifically its security apparatus, and the way it tries to dominate and control Palestinians. In the year 2006, an Israeli IDF soldier, Gilad Shalit, was kidnapped. The mastermind of that operation was actually Yahya Sinwar's brother, Muhammad Sinwar. Shalit was held in the Gaza Strip until 2011 when a hostage deal was brokered. Over 1,000 Palestinian prisoners were released in exchange for Gilad Shalit, including Yahya Sinwar. As an anecdote, I'll say that Sinwar himself had called upon Hamas to not carry out that hostage exchange. Sinwar said that he does not want to be part of any release of Palestinian prisoners until all Palestinian prisoners are released. Nonetheless, the movement did go ahead with that deal in 2011, and he was released. But that fact of him being released while leaving his quote-unquote brethren behind is extremely important. That stain that Sinwar felt, that he was released before other Palestinian prisoners, is something that he stated in many different speeches that he would not let go. He said he would not leave any of his Palestinian prisoners and brethren behind, and from the moment he was released, he continuously advocated that the Al-Qassam brigades of Hamas must devote themselves to more kidnappings and securing the release of all Palestinian prisoners. Sinwar rose within the ranks of the Hamas movement as a result of both his very, very charismatic rhetoric, as well as his ancient ties that he had with the different movement's leaders. such that 6 years after he was released in 2017, he was elected to be the leader of Hamas in the Gaza Strip. This is not the all-encompassing leader of Hamas, the leader of Hamas in the Gaza Strip, serving quote-unquote under the external leadership of Hamas, Ismail Haniyeh, who had then relocated to Qatar. Since he assumed control in 2017, Yahya Sinwar began working on what he called was his regional vision that was coordinating all of the quote-unquote resistance movements against Israel. He began by organizing a joint headquarters within the Gaza Strip that would bring together all of the different militant groups in the Gaza Strip: Hamas, the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, the Popular Front of Liberation of Palestine, the Popular Resistance Forces, the Al-Aqsa Martyrs Brigade, and others. He also invested a lot in coordinating the activities with Hezbollah. He is one of the people who advocated for the role of Salah al-Aruri, the Hamas emissary, to go to Lebanon and establish Hamas units within Lebanon in order to try to coordinate their activity with Hezbollah as well. This was part of his vision to create a multi-front war against Israel. There's been lots of different reports about whether the October 7th attack was coordinated with different regional actors or not. What is clear is that starting in 2020, 2021, Yahya Sinwar began developing a large-scale attack that ended up looking like the October 7th attack. It is also pretty established from evidence that this attack was not coordinated with Hezbollah or even with Hamas's external leadership. Both Hezbollah and the external leadership were told that a big attack would happen at some point. However, they did not know the scope, the scale, or when exactly it would occur. That attack ended up happening on October 7th, 2023. Yahya Sinwar was the mastermind of that attack alongside other people in Hamas's leadership in the Gaza Strip: Mohammed Def, the leader of the Al-Qassam brigades, as well as Mohammed Sinwar, Yahya Sinwar's younger brother, who is one of the people who rose to the ranks within the Hamas movement as well. Since the war began, Yahya Sinwar has been in hiding. When negotiations have been developed with regards to hostage deals and a possible ceasefire, Yahya Sinwar has tended to take the more hardline position. He refused any notions that there would be any truce and a hostage release without a complete and ultimate ceasefire and an end to the war. And he also insisted that there would be a complete removing of the siege that Israel and Egypt had imposed on the Gaza Strip. And he constantly advocated as many Palestinian prisoners would be released. That was his main vision, to securing the release of as many Palestinian prisoners as possible. As I said, he was killed on October 16th, 2024, in this encounter with the IDF in Rafah, the most southern town in the Gaza Strip. What has happened since then? What does this mean for the ongoing war, hostage negotiations, and a possible ceasefire agreement? According to reports, hours after the confirmation of Sinwar's death, Israeli officials quickly made contact with the negotiators in Qatar in order to ensure that there would be an open channel created with Hamas leadership both abroad and possibly what remaining leadership there is in the Gaza Strip. According to reports, Israel is very fearful that the different Al-Qassam captors that are holding Israeli hostages will now not know which orders to follow following the death of Sinwar, as summary executions may occur, or retributions or hostages may simply quote-unquote get lost. Some reports have suggested that the Israeli team floated the idea that any Hamas leader that will become a negotiator within the Gaza Strip may be granted immunity if he guarantees the lives of the hostages. Other suggestions have been made that Israel may try to guarantee safe passage and exit from the Gaza Strip to any captors that release Israeli hostages. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu even alluded to this possibility in a speech that he gave. Right now, what is clear is that Israel is trying to open another negotiation channel with whoever may be a leader in the Gaza Strip or in the external leadership of Hamas, effectively trying to restart negotiations where they have been frozen out of fear that right now there is actually no governing body within the Gaza Strip that may issue orders to the different captors of the Hamas movement that are holding hostages. Now I'm going to say a couple of words about who might be the successors of Yahya Sinwar as the leader of Hamas, although at this point we don't really know. Some of the most likely figures are Mohammed Sinwar. He is the person who was closest to Yahya Sinwar, his older brother. He is someone who rose within the ranks of Hamas. He was already a division commander of Hamas's Al-Qassam brigades back in 2005. He has survived many different assassination attempts of the IDF. And especially since the war began, he very much rose through the ranks. After the assassination of Mohammed Def, the leader of the Al-Qassam brigades, he was made the de facto leader of the Al-Qassam brigades, Hamas's military wing. Right now, he's the most prominent figure within the Gaza Strip, who may assume some control over the ranks. However, it is also important to note he is not a political or known to be a charismatic figure. He was much in the shadows of Yahya Sinwar. He's known to be just as hardline, just as radical on the one hand, and has a very tight grip over the Al-Qassam brigades on the one hand. On the other hand, he doesn't have the same diplomatic clout that Yahya Sinwar had as the leader of the movement and a political figure as well. Another figure that has been raised as a possible successor is Khalid Mashal. Khalid Mashal was the leader of Hamas, the external leader of Hamas, already in the previous decade, from 2007 till 2017. He resides in Qatar. He's a very known figure in the international community in the Middle East. He has a lot of ties with Qatar, actually does not have that many good relationships with Iran as much as his previous leaders. However, while he may be the most obvious choice, quote unquote, with regards to the political situation for Hamas, at the same time, he has very little contact with what is actually happening in the Gaza Strip. He's an external leader. So at this point, it remains to be seen how Hamas tries to navigate, on the one hand, the internal leader, Mohammed Sinwar, not having a lot of diplomatic relations that he can develop and draw upon. On the other hand, Khalid Mashal, the external leader, not actually having any say on what happens within the Gaza Strip. In the last several hours, the Lebanese LBCI news network reported that Khalid Mashal is likely to be elected the next leader of Hamas. However, it was only reported in that news outlet, so at this point, it's unclear if that is the case. Obviously, I'll report more about that in the coming days as things develop. Right now, there's a lot of question marks with regards to what is going to happen with the future of Hamas and the future of the Israel-Hamas war. What is clear is, first of all, the war is not over just because Yahya Sinwar has been killed. Yahya Sinwar was the undisputed leader of Hamas. However, Mohammed Sinwar and other leaders of Hamas do exist, and the fighting ranks are likely to regather themselves very quickly within the Gaza Strip. However, the new election of a Hamas leader will be a critical juncture in the war. It will take us two different directions with regards to how the war develops, which directions those are, and what will this mean for the future of the trajectory of the Israel-Hamas war. That still remains to be seen. That is my brief summary of Yahya Sinwar and the significance of his death. If you find this informative, please do remember to hit that like button, subscribe, turn on notifications if you want to know when these summaries come out. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. I'm Alon Burstein. I'm a visiting assistant professor and an Israel Institute fellow in the Department of Political Science at Tufts University. Thanks for watching.